Finding Common Battlegrounds is an attempt by two brothers, one conservative, the other progressive, to have civil conversations about politics with a little help from their friends.
All right, welcome to another episode of Finding Common Battleground. This is the podcast dedicated to civil debate and finding the common ground that we have rather than focusing on what we disagree on, because that's easy. It's hard to find the stuff we do agree on, but the funny thing is there's actually probably more that we agree on than we disagree on, and it's a shame that the media doesn't focus more on that. But anyway, our format today, we're going to be just going through, I'm going to be peppering Ryan and Josh, the liberal and conservatives who will be representing each side with a number of questions, and we'll just be talking about each one. So, yeah, this is just discussion today. And so we're just kind of shooting the breeze and see what we come up with. I had a bunch of questions prepared last time, but our first question, we never got past it, was about Disney, and man, that was a hot button. So it's interesting. Some of these we just like fly through, and then others it's like we spend an hour on. But
got a lot to say about Walt Disney.
There was a lot to say. It was interesting. That was an interesting episode. But yeah, let's just dive in. Let's just do it. So I'm kind of shaking these up a little bit. Let me see which question we want to do first. Okay. This is one I thought was interesting. So, Biden is working on an executive order to ban ghost guns. I don't know if you guys have read about this at all or up to date on this, but
a little bit. Okay.
So, Josh, you could probably say it better than me what a ghost gun is.
I think it was. I'm not up to date on what Biden was doing, but I think it's guns without serial numbers, guns that you can make with a printer,
3D printer,
a 3D printer. Which I don't know if you want me to just jump into this, or do you want to give some background?
Yeah, I'm trying to give a little background here. So I was reading the article, and I can't. So there was one line I was trying to highlight here. And I'm gonna get on the wrong spot here. Where is it? And updates, regulatory. Yeah, it's basically they're trying to close the loophole that ghost guns have kind of been that have made ghost guns relevant to make it harder for these guns to get 3D printed. And I guess it's been a big thing as they've sort of ghost guns have proliferated because they're popular. They're not trackable, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's actually, they say it's Biden that's doing it, but it's actually the agency. It's the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco. Yeah, the ATF. Yep, they're working on that and on trying to make some new rules. But yeah, I want to see what people thought about that one. That's an interesting one, I think.
Josh, you want to go first?
Yeah, I really didn't look into it much, but
Josh, are you a gun owner?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Do you? I guess what's your opinion on ghost guns then? On having do you feel strongly that someone should have their gun registered and?
Well, first things first. It's already illegal. Like if you buy a gun, you can't file off the serial number, right? That's illegal.
Yep.
So we already have restrictions in place about tracking guns. And we talked about this in the gun episode. I would concede that if we wanted to really crack down on school shootings and stuff like that, I would concede that we adopt a more Swiss approach, maybe. To tracking guns. I'm all about the Second Amendment. It's incredibly important. People should have guns as long as you're willing to be responsible with them. And I think you should train with them. So if we wanted to adopt the Swiss approach and track who has them.
What's the Swiss approach?
Everybody has a gun, but the government knows who has guns. Basically, there's more laws than we have here. But to say that there's like a loophole, this is the same silly claim that liberals make about the gun show loophole. They say it's easy to go buy a gun. You go to a gun show and they don't do background checks. It's bullcrap. Okay. It's been disproven several times. There's no loophole. And the ghost gun thing where you can make a gun, these are pretty crappy guns. Okay. Because they're not metal. The vast majority of guns, they have polymer in them, like the handles and stuff, but the actions and the chambers are always metal. So these guns that you 3D print, they're usually a one-off.
They're one-time use.
Pretty much. Yeah. Okay. And they can be very dangerous. I haven't made one. I haven't shot one. You could probably make a decent one, maybe. That seems kind of far-fetched to me. So it's really kind of a non-issue. I think this is just another scare tactic from the liberals. The same thing they do with assault rifles are so big, bad, and scary. The vast majority of deaths in the U.S. come from pistols, but they want to do an assault rifle ban, even though that's 1% of the shootings. Okay, it's just like a red herring scare tactic. I think it's a non-issue. I mean, who's getting shot by ghost guns? Has anybody been shot by one of these 3D printed guns? Has anybody shot up a school? I don't think you could shoot up a school. I think you could shoot one person and it'll blow up in your hand. It'd probably hurt you. So, I mean, I'm not an expert on these, but it seems a non-issue to me.
Yeah, it said in the article I was reading, it said there was approximately 20,000 suspected ghost guns reported to the ATF, having been recovered by law enforcement, but I don't know what that is as a percentage, right? And they probably, if it was a big percentage, they probably would have put it in the article, right? Yeah. But so you're probably right. It's probably a small percentage, but I'm not sure. All right, Ryan, what's your take?
Yeah. So I'm not sure. I don't know that I feel super strongly about this. I'm not trying to just like disagree with Josh because I want to disagree with Josh. I want to complicate things a little bit because, I'm the king of nuance here. So rather than go down a couple of paths that I don't think I really need to, I think where this could get more complicated, because when they first started being able to print guns, right, with 3D printers, Josh was right. It was like plastic polymers and they were one-offs. You can put a bullet in it, but it's going to basically break the gun. It's just too much power in there. But there are now 3D printers that print metal. They're expensive. They're crazy expensive, right? So it's not like, Joe Blow's going to have one of these 3D sinters in their garage that costs $80,000. But, that's actually how SpaceX prints its engines for its rockets, right? It literally prints them on a 3D printer. So if we get to the point where, 3D printers can print metal, now we're not talking about one-off guns anymore. Those are effectively guns, right? Like there's no meaningful difference between that and a gun that you would buy in a store. You're just 3D printing it.
Let's parse that just a little bit. If you're willing to spend that much money on one of these 3D printers, and then you're willing to take the risk of making guns and then selling them, presumably mass producing them, why not just get a license and become a gun manufacturer? I mean, what kind of weird underground dude is going to spend $50,000 on this 3D printer and then risk losing it all by selling a gun to his buddy? Okay,
I'm not saying he's going to sell it to his buddy, right? But come on, there are plenty of wackos out there who would totally do this, right?
No,
like, you live in Prepper Central, Josh. Like, go north into Idaho, and
I don't know
those
anybody
people are
that's
spending
dumb enough to do that.
Yeah, but they're spending $50,000 on food storage and bunkers in their backyards, right? You're telling me they're not going to drop the money on whatever gun they can get for the impending apocalypse, right? So I get what you're saying. You can just
buy a gun. You can go to the store and just buy a gun for a couple $100. So
unless you have a criminal record.
Well, okay, that might be worth looking into, but then it's already illegal. We already have laws in place to prevent you from having a gun and prevent this guy from proliferating the guns. So
yes. So quick tangent, right? And I don't know, sure, our audience isn't going to care about this, right? But it is possible to buy guns without background checks. I know because I sold some last summer when I was cleaning out my in-laws' house. My father-in-law had some guns, and I listed them on there's a gun website in Utah. What's the one? It's not KSL. You can't do it on
Utah
KSL.
Gun Exchange?
Yes, Utah Gun Exchange. I listed 3 guns on there, 2 shotguns and a rifle, and sold them all in the course of 48 hours.
And
No
there's
background checks involved. No.
No, you don't need one for private cells.
Private cells, you don't need background checks, right?
Oh.
So the
weird.
gun show thing, sure, I get it. What Josh is saying, that's perfectly fine. But it's absolutely possible that you could buy a gun on Utah Gun Exchange, right, or some other place like that, a private cell, no background check involved whatsoever, right? And I know because I did it. And trust me, when we were talking about doing this, my wife and I were like, do we really feel okay doing this? Like, we need to see who's going to come pick up these guns, right? Like, who are you and why are you buying this shotgun? And if it's, and I hate to stereotype, right? But if it looks like some kid who hasn't left his parents' basement in the last, 5 years, and
does he wear a trench coat?
Yeah,
we were
a little nervous, right? But it turns out they were older.
It was probably a
guns.
guy that looked like me.
Older, right? It was like a 70-year-old who collects guns. And they all had some damage, right? They were old guns, hadn't been fired in forever. And when I say damage, like, the stock was cracked a little bit. And so he would fix them up and then he'd resell them. And I was like, okay, that's fine. Like, I don't really care. But anyway, so that's beside the point. On the ghost guns, if we get to 3D printed metal guns, like, okay, that's a different issue. But right now, I mean, how are you going to stop it? Right? Like, how can you... I think this is maybe naive on the part of Biden or the ATF. Once you put something on the internet, particularly like a 3D printing design, is it ever going to go away? No.
And I've mentioned this before. You don't even need a 3D printer to make a functional gun. I could, if I have shotgun shells, I could go to Home Depot and buy a couple of pipes and some
strap them together, and
I can make a gun out of some pipes at Home Depot. Okay, I actually know how to do that. It's not incredibly hard. It's not going to be like real nice and easy to use and stuff, but I can make a functional gun. So you don't need a 3D printer for that. So if we're going to go to that level, we're going to be that afraid of this stuff. That's a whole nother conversation. I think it's a non-issue. I think it's Biden's trying to distract from, the horrible economy and the everything else that's going on. So I should say inflation.
No, I mean, I wish I could be like, oh yes, go. This is a huge deal. Like, ban all the ghost guns. But I don't know that, one, it's prolific. How many ghost guns are out there, right? I don't think many people have 3D printers to begin with. And then even those who have 3D printers, it's going to be a fraction of a fraction are interested in printing a gun. And even then, how many of them are going to use it for some nefarious purpose, right? So it's not like I think it's a good idea for everybody to print a gun. I'm not saying that.
I think it's a horrible idea. It's
Ryan,
dangerous.
What's your in a nutshell, what's your stance on guns? Pretty typical liberal, like, you ban assault rifles.
I would even go so far as to say, like, you can own an assault rifle, but that one you do have to keep at the police station, right? But I don't think you'd necessarily have to keep like a hunting rifle in the police station if you're trained. It's, regulated. So who gets to buy it? There's background checks. You have to take a class to be able to use it. And then you have to demonstrate why you want to have a hunting rifle. Josh insinuated this, right? But I think there should be more restrictions on pistols because he's absolutely right. There's far more violence done to humans with pistols than any other type of weapon. And so there should be a lot more restrictions on pistols than there are on even assault rifles. But assault rifles are more commonly used in mass shootings than just like individual shootings. So
they grab
not that they're the main thing, but they are. So my take would be like my next door neighbor, he goes hunting all the time. Right. I don't have a problem. He's got a gun safe. He's very serious about it. He, takes very serious care about this. I don't have a problem with people hunting. It's the proliferation of gun violence. And there are very specific things that I think you could do to crack down on that, right? Make it much harder to get pistols. And we talked about in the episode that we did, and some locales, I think, have started to do this, that you have to have insurance on your gun if your gun is used to commit violence against somebody, that you have to have insurance for that. So that's one way to basically kind of crack down. And Josh, actually, I think he thought that was an interesting idea when we talked about it back then.
Yeah, I hadn't heard it. It's interesting, but it's a bad idea. If you're just trying to price people out of guns again, just make sure it's just the rich people. We don't want poor people to have guns. That's basically what that's saying. Just make it more expensive, a higher threshold on guns. That's what that kind of thing does.
All right. Okay. Cool. Wanted to just see what you guys thought about that.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Right.
We found agreement. I think we both agreed. Kind of a non-issue.
Not really a big deal.
Josh, we may not always agree when it comes to politics, even though we're trying, but there is one thing we agree on. There is only one way to clean up after going to the bathroom, and that's with a Lux bidet.
I've been a proud owner of a Lux bidet for years. I have literally owned a Lux Neo 320 since 2013. That's the warm water model. Talk about happy, fun, poopy time. When I leave the bathroom, I know I'm clean and ready to talk politics in a civilized manner.
Exactly. Using a toilet without a bidet is about as uncivilized as it gets. Civil conversations demand civil hygiene practices.
And that is why our listeners should get themselves a Lux bidet.
And just to be clear, Lux is not supporting one side or the other in this podcast. They support civil conversations and clean butts.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Finding Common Battlegrounds. The music is by Ben Sound. The views expressed in this podcast are those of the participants and not those of their employers. For more information or more episodes, you can find us at findingcommonbattlegrounds.com.